This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. If you don't already subscribe to Paramount Plus, please use our affiliate link by going to talkthroughmedia.com/Paramount Plus. Using our affiliate link gives us a little credit, which helps us to keep bringing you great content. U.S. residents only.
Hello, and welcome to Episode 5 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Talk Through. I'm Brian.
And I'm LT.
And I'm Wes.
Hey, Wes. How you doing?
Wes.
You have been on several podcasts, but usually on the news part, but now you are a guest host. So you're going to do the news live and in person.
Yep.
Yeah.
As opposed to having Wes in a can, we have Wes live.
Yep. So happy to have you here. And we will be covering Season 1, Episode 5, titled Spock Amok. This one will probably be rather amusing to talk about, I imagine. Before we get started, we want to remind you that we now provide early access to a virtually uncensored version of the podcast that goes out roughly within 24 hours, sometimes 36, sometimes whenever, earlier anyway. Last week's was just a major screw up. I lost audio about an hour into a 3-hour podcast, and so Patreon's only got the first hour because the rest of it was going to take me a while. So, and I had to also get out episode 3. So anyway, so sometimes, you have to make do, but at least they got a good chunk of the episode before everyone else did. And, most times it's the whole episode. Hopefully this time it'll be the whole episode. But anyway, if you're interested in that, please go to patreon.com/Star Trek TTM to sign up. And the early access to the episodes is one thing, but, occasionally it's been a while, but call-in shows we haven't done in a while, but we're going to do one pretty soon. And I had another idea as far as some other things to do within the Patreon. So we're going to kind of rattle a cage a little bit together and see if that goes forward. But anyway, okay. So before we get started, with feedback for this week's episode, we have some feedback for the last 2 weeks and some errata. So let's open hailing frequencies. First, we have some errata.
Incorrect.
So one thing I didn't mention in the podcast last week that I meant to was, what was with the guy laughing at the dog bark? At the start of the episode, there was a guy that was laughing at the dog bark. And I was just like, okay, what's with that? And was he one of the Starfleet officers, or was he someone else on the planet? Probably the former, not the latter, but I thought it was kind of weird. So,
well, no, you just had the bejeebers scared out of you and you realize, oh, it's just a dog.
Yeah. The second thing, and this is something I missed, but I got it earlier, I guess later in the week, after another watch of the episode. Pike asks for full impulse, and Lieutenant Ortegas comes back and says that the starboard nacelle is damaged, but the nacelles are not related to impulse. That's why they're called warp nacelles. So what's up with that?
Because they're all related to the power systems and they all are related to the engine system. So it's potential that if one has a problem, it could affect the other.
You think so?
I think so.
I just thought it was odd. Just
If I was gonna think it was a shenanigan, I might have brought it up before, but that passed notice. So
yeah, okay. Well, anyway, that's all I had for last week. Some things that just kind of I picked up on that I didn't mention. So, all right. So we got some feedback from our good friend Jeff X-Force11. Of course, he was away for a couple of weeks doing his play thing, whatever he has to do with the one play. I think it's kind of like audio visual stuff or whatever. But
stage crew.
Yeah. But anyway, so we have a voicemail from him covering episodes 3 and 4. So here it is. Actually, pretty short.
Well, hello, Star Trek fans. This is Jeff X-Force11, and I just wanted to play a little bit of catch-up with the last 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds. I have really been enjoying this series. It is quickly becoming my favorite new Trek, and I enjoyed the episode that we got focusing on Una and giving more story to her and who she is. And I really enjoyed that. And then Memento Mori was an amazing submarine in space tale. And it just really showcases the crew. And I've got to say, what I'm really liking about this series, in addition to the cast and the writing, is the story format, where we're getting more episodes of the week that also carry storylines as well. It's a good mix, and I think you had to do that to put it in the classic era, and they are doing such a good job, and I cannot wait to see what's next. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff X-Force11, for your feedback this week. Of course, this is feedback number 1 of 2. So we will be hearing from him again for episode 5. But I agree with you. This is quickly becoming my favorite as well. 5 for 5. 5 for 5. Yep. What about you, Wes? You agree with that?
Yes, I do agree with Jeff. He mentioned about the classic era regarding episodes of the week with some like through lines throughout the series, through lines that will be followed up on and stuff like that. That is kind of what, if I remember my Star Trek history very well, that's when it's been around since 1989, 1990, during the 3rd season of Next Generation, when Michael Piller was the head writer.
Yeah,
and he started that.
Yeah,
and I think they're trying. I think Henry Alonzo Myers and Akiva Goldsman are trying to channel that kind of storytelling back into Star Trek.
Yeah, and I think that this is a great balance. I think that this is. I think the the season long kind of format is interesting, but it all depends upon how the story's going to work at the end. So if it's like with Ruthie and I with season 1 of Picard. I mean, largely. First 8 episodes were outstanding, mostly. And the last 2 just brought down the series, for us. And we haven't gone through the whole season of Picard yet, but we will. But again, not to an overall impression, but we'll be talking about it, soon. And I think the three of us will be at some point in our guest rotation.
Yeah.
But it also was this uneven part. So it started really good, and I think parts of the second half of it were good, but there was this, section in the middle, and even some of that last episode that I just didn't work.
It started off well. It picked up a lot of speed and then just petered out. It's
right.
And even though everything got wrapped up, it just lost a lot of the energy and a lot of the inertia they started with. And so far, Strange New Worlds has avoided that because they said, well, we're going to be episodic.
Right.
Even though they are carrying forward, different plot points and different stories. And I really think that this is finally, as we've said, this is the sweet spot.
Right.
That the complaints that we've had about Discovery and Picard, where you can't just jump in the middle and watch a random episode and be cool with it.
Right.
Because there's too much front loading you actually needed before you can really get everything that's going on. And so far they're avoiding that with Strange New Worlds. And I think that it's definitely a plus because, as you said, Picard seemed to be and I don't want to say the worst case of serialized, but it definitely suffered from the way that they had plotted out the story.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think, I've described it with this show. This way of telling stories is like the NYPD Blue / Grey's Anatomy / I don't know, Chicago, whatever, of the, of Star Trek, I guess. So it's, you have these things going on that are, the thing of the week, and wired into it or weaved into it is like a one or more character arcs. And, that's the kind of thing you used to see in, like, the one I'm thinking of most is NYPD Blue. It was the same kind of thing. You'd see, they would bring in, like Andy Sipowicz, and the things going on with, that character, in the middle of the cases that, the detectives would be working on that particular episode. Same thing with Grey's Anatomy. There'll be different surgeries they have to do that week. And at the same time, there's like all this like soapy drama. It's not the same kind of soapy drama. There's not a lot of like, sleeping around, thankfully. But it's a similar kind of thing. So that's the way I like to think about it. It's, and I think that works perfectly. So, yeah.
I think the series is trying to, with the exception of the pilot, so far for Strange New Worlds, they have showcased, every single episode so far has put the spotlight on one of the main characters. Like, for example, this episode, Spock Amok, obviously is about Spock.
Right.
But, and then the ones before that Jeff mentioned, one focused on Una, the other one focused, for me personally, Memento Mori focused on Loan.
Right.
So, and I think that's pretty good. And personally, I think Discovery season 4 was the one that kind of suffered, stumbled at the end, stumbled in the middle, but then personally picked up at the end.
Yeah, I agree with that.
How I felt about Discovery season 4, because I know when I wrote, my good enough, not yes, no, not hold your horses for this podcast, I felt like sometimes I was like struggling to try to figure out what to say because
Right.
it felt like some of the episodes kind of dragged the story on.
Right.
Like it needed like fillers.
Right.
And I personally think with Picard season 1, it started out slow, but personally I thought it ended great.
Oh,
and
okay.
that's how I felt the opposite.
Well,
and then Picard season 2, to me, I thought it was perfect all the way. I mean, personally, I liked the whole season.
good.
I thought it was because I thought it was a really good explanation. It needed to describe. I don't know. It gave it more depth to Picard's character that we've known for now at 35 years now.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it certainly did that, and I think those are some of the highlights of it, and you know, so but yeah, and we still have 5 episodes to cover on that. The 4th one is just out to Patreons. I don't know what's going on with the 4th one, but hopefully we'll have that out shortly. The 5th one needs to be edited still, and then 6 to 10 we'll have. We still got to record, so anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do, but hopefully we'll get to that soon. So, all right. We don't have any more feedback for last week or coming weeks or, prior weeks that I saw, and I looked many different places. So the various places, I mean, of course. Let's move on to this week's episode, Season 1, Episode 5, titled Spock Amok. Written by the co-showrunner Henry Alonso Myers and Robin Wasserman, who is an author, an essayist, and a screenwriter. So she's busy on multiple forms of writing, which is cool. Directed by Rachel Leiterman. The description from ParamountPlus.com is as follows. It's a comedy of manners when Spock has a personal visit in the middle of Spock and Captain Pike's crucial negotiations with an unusual alien species. The stardate is 2341.4. The air date is June 1st, 2022, and it had a runtime of 51 minutes, 51 seconds. All right, Wes, what would you give Season 1, Episode 5, Spock Amok?
Well, I'm just going to say, I could talk about this because now I can talk about it with you two. I had actually, you guys have been wondering why I've gotten these early, and I want to talk about that briefly before I say my rating, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, because I know you guys were curious. So I write reviews of episodes. I wrote the season 2 reviews for a fan website called warpfactortrek.com.
Okay.
And the editor-in-chief was able to secure press screenings of the episodes. So I was able to see this episode approximately 3 weeks early before the season, before the series premiered.
Yeah.
And there was an embargo. I mentioned in the comments before, because once you get the screener, you can't you can't do story specifics in your reviews until the episode drops on Paramount Plus.
Right.
So it makes sense. So I got to see this episode, and I give it 3 weeks before the series premiered, and I give this one 10 green-shirted pikes out of 10.
Yeah, green-shirted pikes. Yes. Yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed about this episode when Pike showed up. LT, what about you?
Well, I'm giving this a 9.9 out of 10. Good cop, bad cop, not Haley Mills in space.
Speaking of good cop, bad cop, I'm going to be the lowest on this episode, and I'm going to give it a 9.5. Let's see. 9.5. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to see if I can find it again. I spent like several hours yesterday looking for the audio clip that I have of that I actually used in an episode a while back on the Walking Dead talk through. I can't find it. I've looked all over my computer, can't find it. So I may have to recreate it. I don't know, but
I've got one somewhere.
Do you? But anyway, I may be affected by the fact that I'm watching these damn episodes on a stinking, iPhone 13 Pro, with just say, questionable signal, and that might be part of it. And it might be just, I don't know. I was not in a good mood that particular day when the episode dropped, but it kind of, like, when I first saw it, I would have given it an 8. And then I kind of like pieced everything together and said, well, you're way off. So it's a 9.5. But I give the option to raise that over the season as time goes on. Because it's one of those things where it's like, it was so low that it's hard for me to just jump it right up to like a 9.9, because of that first reaction. I just was not in the right mood for it, and I just kind of suffered. But anyway, it's irrational.
So Brian gets to be the Russian gymnastics judge this time.
Yeah, and this is the lowest. This is the lowest I've rated the episodes, but it's still a 9.5. So, again, me talking about this the way that I am, saying that it's lower rating, is still getting a 9.5. So, there's not much to quibble about. It's still an outstanding episode. I just wasn't in the mood for romantic comedy / Freaky Friday. So I got much more into Memento Mori when I watched it this week. So anyway, if that makes any sense. All right. So let's move on to our listener ratings. We only got 2. LT, want to take first one, and Wes the second?
I shall.
One. Yeah.
So our listener ratings start off with James the Augmented Sailor, who says Spock Amok gets another 9.95. If there's an emergency, of course you must speak with Spock, who is right there. Yes, I can see that. OMG, Disco and Picard could learn from this show's consistency.
Wes, would you be able to take the second one?
Yeah, of course. Okay, I got Brian from Colorado. He says, I rate Spock Amok 9.99 Freaky Friday Katra transfers. This is an essentially perfect Star Trek episode complete with hijinks. I cracked every time Spock or T'Pring said hijinks, I cracked up. Yeah, I did too.
Yes, one would go fascinating. Hijinks.
I think Spock and T'Pring speak in a really weird tone with each other, and it's really hilarious. when they speak to each other, it's really funny and awkward.
It's that dating couples kind of thing.
Yeah, it is, but in a Vulcan sense, LT.
I know, and that's what makes it even more awkward, I think.
Awkward, and makes you laugh at it too.
All right, and now we have some yeses.
Yes.
Go ahead, LT.
Okay, let's kick it off with some listener yeses from James the Augmented Sailor, who says, hit it! Honeycombs in Spock's quarters, though they weren't as good as they were in Disco. He says the green command dress top on Pike. Enterprise bingo looks like so much fun. May sting a little, though. This is definitely another type of maritime ritual that we have in the Navy for junior officers. One thing, though, there's nothing under ensign. Enlisted is an entirely different rank structure, so saying ensign below is a bit of a misnomer. And he says spring or tapak, punching Barjan and then capturing him. Were the solar sailors the same design as the ancient Bajoran ones? If so, was there a cultural exchange between the two species at some point? The design of it was almost spot on with the DS9 design, but updated for modern effect. Huge yes. And I want to know more about the Rongovians, or Rongovians. He says, Mabinga's fishing hat. So 20th century. It's a great throwback. And of course, he mentions the TOS fight music from Amok Time in the dream sequence.
Cool. All right. Wes, why don't you take the next one?
All right. We have Brian from Colorado who says, I love the lighthearted, humorous feel of this episode with its musical score to match. It was great. The Amok Time references throughout were nostalgic for me, and I really enjoyed how we got to see the complexity in the Spock to Pring relationship, even especially the funny way their bickering was depicted. Several TOS references besides Amok Time were fun to see too, like Pike's green uniform, much better than Kirk's, and Spock mentioning of his pet Sailot. When Nurse Chapel ditched her date to go to talk to Spock, it was obvious she has a crush on him. She also alluded to this a few other times in the episode. I'm warming up to this version of Nurse Chapel, especially seeing how she really cares for Spock now and later dotes him on TOS. I really enjoyed seeing the lake at Starbase 1, Jupiter Station, and Mbenga enjoying his time fishing. The solar ship was beautiful and a nice nod to DS9, and Spock's statement paraphrasing I am Spock was an appropriate callback to Leonard Nimoy's memoir by the same name. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
That's a good catch, actually. I'll have to put that in the spot the references, which I didn't have in there.
Yeah, way to go, Brian. I didn't recognize that either.
Yeah, well, no, I heard it, but I just I didn't write it down when the time. Like I said, when you're watching it on your phone, it's difficult to watch it on your phone and write notes at the same time. So, listeners, the issue that I'm having right now is where I'm at. My bandwidth is capped. I keep on running into hotspot issues. I've already had to increase my bill twice. So, that's where I'm at. So I had to increase my hotspot bandwidth by 50 gig. And even then I'm about to run out. So anyway, that's not that you need to know. Okay. So, let's get on to our, own yeses. So Wes, as our guest, why don't you go first?
Well, Brian and James kind of touched upon what I was going to say for my yeses. Well, I did really enjoy seeing the green tunic for the first time since Enterprise. Updated obviously for Strange New Worlds. I did enjoy seeing that. It was really cool seeing Pike in that. I did enjoy the when they swapped bodies and they started talking to each other as their characters, as T'Pring as Spock and Spock as T'Pring. It was just hilarious, and I did like the Enterprise bingo. That was actually something that I chuckled when I first watched it early, and stuff like that. When I got all 5, this was actually my favorite one of the bunch. So, and that was my big yeses to this episode. Yeah, I think that's all I gotta say about that.
So I remember when we were going through the ratings, like was it the second episode you didn't like much?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because to me, that episode reminded me too much of the Orville.
Yeah.
Regarding the, what was it? the shepherds reminded me too much of the Krill
Okay.
from the Orville. So like their devotion to whether they were worshiping and stuff like that reminded me too much of the Krill in the Orville and their god Avis. So and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's what I didn't like that one too much, but I did like this one very, very much. So
at Avis, we try harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. LT, what about your yeses?
Well, I was going to start off and say, once again, I'm really enjoying what they're doing with the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I definitely like, and everybody says, oh, it's that music from Amok Time. Well, it's always the Kirk fight music in my head.
Yeah, for me too.
That I enjoyed the musical cues back to that. And one of the things that they're really knocking out of the park with this series so far, in my opinion, is the way that the soundtrack is amplifying what you're seeing. That it seems to have fit really well, and I am very much anticipating whenever they release this so that I can go ahead and buy it.
Well, supposedly it's coming out soon, right, Wes? You had an article about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's supposed to be out hopefully by the end of June or early July. That's according to the composer, Namni Melmad.
So probably right after the season is finished.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Cool.
Which will be awesome.
Yeah.
My next yes is that I'm sorry. I really loved this sequence in the transporter room when they talked about where fun goes to die. Just the way that they played it with it's like, obviously Ortegas is the one that says stuff and doesn't have much of a filter. And then when the doc said something, and the doc is sort of the innocent foil in all this, just the way that Chapel suddenly cut her eyes at him and it's like, no, don't say it. But that whole sequence was funny because just the look on, Rebecca Romaine's face, and she's going, really? Did they say that? And everybody's going, oh, no, ma'am. The way that Kyle started squirming, because obviously everybody knew. And this is where, and I'm sure that he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but normally the XO is the one that has a better ear to the crew. That in this case, it seems like that, the captain seems to be the warm, fuzzy one, because a lot of times in a ship, the captain is in charge of everything and doing the overall running, but the XO generally takes care of personnel issues. So usually it's the XO that has a better ear to the ground with what the crew's doing. So I just thought it was funny that she didn't know and that everybody else seemed to know. And it's like nobody told her because apparently she doesn't, she doesn't have a sense of humor kind of thing.
So, who is that person on the ship? You think it almost seems like Ortegas, because she seems to be most grounded. I don't know, and has a better idea of what's going on more than anybody else. So that's accurate.
Possible, but it's one of those things. The higher up the chain you go, the less likely people are going to talk about the day-to-day inner chatter.
Right.
It's sort of that thing. The higher up the chain you go, the more invested you are with, your ideas and your plans. So, I think the next thing I really enjoyed is I liked the interrogation sequence. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Just the fact that it's like they said, good cop, bad cop. And I'm going, in the 23rd century? But the fact that, Lon was being such a hard ass, it's like, don't you know what kind of trouble you're in? And that poor ensign was just like all blubbery and going to pieces. And the fact that number one was doing the, hey, let's just talk about this. You want a cup of coffee? And I'm going, that is usually the strategy you pull when you have two people is you figure out the angle to work to get one of them to talk. And once you get one of them to talk, then you can go to the second one and say, look, we know the deal. You know, here you are. You can go ahead and tell us because we know what happened and you can help yourself out, or you can stick to this ridiculous story that you gave us earlier and just see where the chips fall. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I thought it was, well, and again, having sort of been there before, the whole Spock missed dinner sequence that, you know, he comes back, it's like, oh, I'm sorry I was late. And the fact that, you know, the candles are melted down and the ice cream's melted and, you know, it just that whole sequence of he's going, what did I do? Which led into, you know, my favorite sequence there in the restaurant on the Starbase when Chapel gave Spock a Gibbs slap, if you're an NCIS fan. And I just thought that was hysterical because she's like, you know, what were you thinking? One of the things I really liked was the fact that the aliens mimicked the person that they were negotiating with. And when Pike finally figured that out there towards the end, I just thought that was really a nice touch because, you know, mad props to the guy that was playing the alien captain because he had that level of physicality that he actually was, you know, mimicking the body movements and the hand gestures and the stance that when he was with the Vulcans, it's like he was kind of standing up straight and he had that hands folded across his tummy sort of pose. And then when he was talking to Pike, you could tell his posture was more relaxed and he was more open. And I just really thought that was a well acted spot through that whole sequence when we were dealing with the aliens. And the fact that, you know, Pike is intuitive enough that he figured out what their end game really was.
Yeah. I think, that was the whole thing with the aliens I thought was, a highlight of the episode, although I have one thing to toss into my not good enough. So,
well, I've got a couple, but, and everybody's mentioned it and everybody's already said that they enjoyed seeing it, but I thought it was pretty cool that Pike had the tummy shirt on. And it was in my recollection in talking about TOS in the past when Kirk wore that wraparound shirt is I'd always heard, you know, sort of the backstory that Shatner had put on a little bit of weight and he looked a little more portly when he was wearing his regular shirt. So they came up with the wraparound shirt to kind of hide the belly. Maybe absolutely not true. It may be a folk tale, but that's what I had always heard through the years. But I thought it was really cool that they went there as a uniform cue with Pike. And I'll also give it another big yes that we got to see more Admiral April, that it wasn't just the one sequence we'd gotten. We saw him actually, you know, interacting with folks and actually doing some admirally kind of things. So I think it's good that we're going to get, you know, more interaction with his character because again, any of these guys we can flesh out a little bit more and get a little more interaction with is always a good thing. And that's about it for my yeses.
All right. For me, I would say that, well, just simply everything about the cold open, that was such a, I had such a reaction to the fight. That's one of my favorite moments of TOS. In fact, I have listened to that fight song probably, just by itself, probably 600 times in my lifetime, just by itself, just to listen to it. That's why I put it into an episode of the Walking Dead talk through when there was some kind of fight. I don't remember what episode it was, and that's the problem I'm running into. I don't remember what episode it was to find the this the actual sound file. But
Well, it's been a long time, Brian.
yeah. Yeah, it was probably sometime in season 8, I'm thinking.
It's been a long road
Getting from there to here. I was thinking that, but I didn't go there.
Well, of course I went there.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. So anyway, I think that that was great, and it was even they went to the detail on that, like even to not just the surroundings and the setting, and to modernize it, but they got, like, there's a part where Spock cuts Kirk's shirt and chest, and they even got that in the sequence, and I thought that was amazing, and yeah, so that was great. I also
and just a quick side note, didn't somebody else mention a Learpa?
Yes,
might have been Ortegas, maybe.
Yes, she did.
Or was it Chapel?
Yep.
But that's one of those. I don't think they ever named the weapon. They never mentioned the name of it in TOS, but that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a
Learpa.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? I agree about, the fact that we see April again. And I like seeing April. We know, of course, that at this point that Pike was his first officer. That was actually given to us in 2019, season 2, episode 1, Brother of Discovery, on screen, the very screen where he shows his service record and marks. And just to confirm something I said last week, yes, in fact, Pike did get an F in astrophysics. So he did. So anyway, I thought that this was just, I said 5 for 5, and I give this one slightly lower marks, and I have a feeling the rating is going to go up once I watch it, on a 4K screen, and can really enjoy it the way that it should be, and not on this rinky-dink screen that I have to not only watch on my phone, but I've had to take the resolution down to minimal resolution, so just to keep all the bandwidth down. So I think when I see it, in a better situation, I will like it. And for that matter, I was working from a coffee shop on Friday, and at one point I took a little break and I watched a few minutes of the cold open from my laptop, and much different response to it. So like I say, I believe my rating will change. So I don't want to hear about it from people saying, Brian, how can you give this a 9.5? I have my reasons. None have to do with the actual episode. So anyway, what else can I say? As far as positives, Christine Chapel, I like what they're doing with that character. And we're kind of seeing that kind of sparkle between her and Spock. Like I like that thing at the end. Have to be the right guy, and you can tell that she's thinking of Spock, but unfortunately for her, that's never going to happen.
And see, I took that a completely different way.
Okay, go ahead.
I took it as maybe she's going to try to hook up with Ortegas.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Huh. Interesting.
But we don't know.
I mean, there definitely was, the concept of like, sexual fluidity, kind of bantered about again, because, there was, mentioned like a little fling with that, Chapel had with, some woman on, what was it, Argellus or something?
Yeah.
Argellus 2, that ended up in a phaser fire. So, so maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But anyway,
Okay.
yeah. So, and like I say, I don't have major, issues with the episode. I just, my issues have nothing to do with the episode, essentially. I'm just a curmudgeon this week. So, all right. So let's move on and go to our nose.
No!
Never fails to hit the spot. All right. Wes, why don't you do the first one?
All right. I have James the Augmented Sailor who says, "Oh no, just a nitpick, but it seemed like Spock's ears kept changing throughout the episode. Not from the dream sequence, but in general. I think they must have used multiple appliance sets while shooting. Sometimes an ear would look puffy at the top ridge. Others, they look normal. I could be seeing things, but I'm watching on a 65-inch UHD 4K Samsung TV, so I don't know."
Yeah, we talked about this, and I originally thought that he was talking about like Vulcan Spock versus half human, half Vulcan Spock. And my response was, well, duh, because they're not the same. And okay, that's a yes. Okay, the difference, I forgot to put this in there. The subtlety between the fully Vulcan Spock and the half human, half Vulcan Spock. So, and I'm not talking about the fully human Spock, but if you looked at fully Vulcan Spock versus the current, the regular Spock, there were very slight differences in how he looked. That I seem to notice. Like, I think his ears were slightly different, maybe more pronounced. And I would love to see like a side by side, to see if I'm right or not. But that was the impression that I got. And again, I'm seeing this over the phone, so I might be wrong, but I could detect a difference there. Certainly his hair was different, but
Vulcan Spock was back to the extremely bowly bowl cut.
Right. Yeah. And regular Spock, had a more relaxed bowl cut. So,
and of course, completely human Spock had Ethan Peck's normal hair.
Right.
Because it was wavy.
Wavy, yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I got a kick out of fully human Spock too. We've never seen fully human Spock, so that was rather cool. So, and yes, of course, it looked like just like Ethan Peck, and I wonder, that must have been. And I haven't seen. I've only seen a little bit of the Ready Room this week, so maybe this gets talked about. But wonder how it felt for him to actually get to do some of Spock as as a human.
Well, I fully recommend you watching the Ready Room, mainly because they have a fairly long chat with the actor who plays T'Pring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they actually had a clip in there of the original series, and it's like we had said before that the casting they did is amazing because she really strongly favors the actress from the 60s.
Yeah.
And just in the interview, she was so funny. And it makes me appreciate the fact that she's playing a Vulcan, and you can see that she is, a lot of her, I don't want to say perkiness, but just her personality coming through her performance.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right.
Okay, we're ready for the next one?
Yep.
Okay, Brian from Colorado says, Spock, in T'Pring's body, punching a fellow Vulcan was a big no for me. Spock does not punch people. It's not part of his character. A minor no for me was I think this episode tried to do too much with 4 different concurrent plots. My least favorite of the plots was the number 1 La'an Enterprise bingo story. Still, both of these no's are so minor, I only took off 0.01 points from my score.
Well, that is a pretty low deduction, I would say. So, yes, Brian, I would agree. More appropriate for Spock would have been him giving a Vulcan nerve pinch or neck pinch than doing the punching. So, anyway. All right, so nose for us. Wes, why don't you start with your nose?
Well, I guess I really didn't have any like nose per se, but I kind of agree with what Brian said. Brian from Colorado, like they punched the fellow Vulcan. I mean, granted, yes, it's still early on in his career, and before he becomes the cold, logical selfies later on. So it kind of made sense why his essence would punch that Vulcan, but yeah, it's a little bit weird and stuff like that. That was probably the only one no I had, other than maybe one of the things on the Enterprise bingo, which involved being outside or something like that. I know, granted, it was probably their version of a simulator or something like that, but it just felt a little weird for that particular aspect of bingo. But other than that, I had no other no's other than that. So,
okay. So I guess it's my turn.
Yeah, go ahead, LT. It's your turn.
Well, it's my first no was just, those darn emotional Vulcans. It just seems like we're dancing that fine line between being what the fans are going to think are appropriately logical, emotionless Vulcans. And we're just playing around the edges a little bit because we've noticed that, there is that playfulness between T'Pring and Spock. That, as Wes just said, Spock is still trying to settle into the Spock we expect. So he's, it's a little interesting. I didn't have as much problem with the punch because part of it in my mind was he was trying so hard to be appropriately T'Pring. And I think it was to the point where it's like, screw this. This guy just needs a sock in the bean. So I didn't have as much objection to that, but as a whole, it just seems like we're not getting the stoic, logical Vulcans that we're expecting.
Yeah. And to take it another way, I'm just going to throw this out there, because this is something I wanted to talk about. This criminal who supposedly, has thrown out logic or no longer believes in logic, he seemed pretty logical.
Oh yeah.
In other words, there were times in this episode where Spock and T'Pring seemed pretty, irrational or illogical, and this criminal who supposedly, not very, doesn't believe in logic was very logical.
Yeah. He wasn't quite up to, do I dare say, he wasn't quite Cybaki.
No, he wasn't Cybaki enough.
And he wasn't, right. And I can't remember the name of the group from Enterprise.
Maybe he doesn't have a hidden pain yet.
Could be.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't have a hidden pain yet. So,
well, maybe.
He needs his pain.
Yeah. Share your pain with me.
He doesn't want his pain taken away. He needs his pain.
Yep. Yep. There are some good parts of Star Trek V, but also some parts that aren't so good, like Uhura dancing. I thought that was kind of dumb. Not that she was dancing, but that it somehow like put them in a trance. Anyway.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm going to say next, Brian? It's like, Rutherford, do the dance, Rutherford, do the dance.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's the fans. It's the fans. You're not distracting him hard enough.
That's coming back pretty soon.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it won't be long.
Okay. Well, other than our emotional Vulcans and fan dances, so I guess the 1701 doesn't have phaser discharge sensors.
Huh.
Oh, yeah.
Since Lon and Una were squaring off like high noon in the hallway to shoot each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. You shot me.
What were they on? Were the phasers on like the super lowest setting or something?
Yeah, she said, but it shouldn't matter.
Like bee sting setting.
Like, put it on the lowest setting possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's, as opposed to heavy stun, that's just slightly tickle stun.
Right.
But it still goes to the point of, obviously they don't have any, they had deactivated the phaser discharge sensors on the ship if they had any. I think the other thing that I kind of said no to was this whole thing with T'Pring and Spock's, we're working, not working, is even though they're in port and they're, in for like a maintenance stand down and everybody else is taking shore leave, there's still going to be people on duty on board the ship, and they are on board the ship, and he is the first officer. So
Well, no, he's not the first officer. He's the second officer.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But still, he's the second officer and involved in the negotiations.
And he's still one of the ranking command officers of the ship.
Right.
And he's on board.
Right.
So the idea that it's like, well, you're on shore leave, but I don't buy that. If you were worried about getting interrupted, you would have taken her off the ship.
Right.
And, for her to make the point, well, I'm not working. Well, you're not on board. They're not doing their little, getaway at her place next to her office. So I guess they had to do it because it fit the story they were trying to tell. And it sort of fit in this awkward romance thing, and it set up the Katra transfer. But it's still, to me, I had a problem with the fact that if he is in the upper chain of command of the ship and he's still on the ship, then he's still liable to get called to do stuff. And so the whole thing of, well, your fiance's here. Well, too bad. And I guess that was part of the whole thing they were trying to talk about, was the needs of the service versus the needs of the one.
Right.
But it's still, to me, I was going, if you didn't want to get interrupted, you leave the ship.
Right.
So that was my larger no of that cluster.
Okay.
And just to throw it out there, when they were walking down the primary hull, and we know the ship is in repair dock, I'm thinking that, well, maybe they've got a bubble over it so they don't necessarily have to work in hard hats.
Yeah.
That I do know that the classical starbase has a large enough bay that they can pull the ship into and technically put Atmo around it. So I thought it was kind of weird that they were out walking on the deck, considering that everybody else was, when they caught the two ensigns in the airlock, they were both wearing, EVA suits. But like I said, I didn't take enough pause with it to really deduct for it, because like I said, I know they're in space dock, so they might have an area that they actually decide to put atmosphere over the exterior of the ship so they don't have to work in EVA, or, part of some hull integrity testing or some other thing.
Well, I thought Spock would have sent a message to Pring, letting her know of the change in plans and that he'd be late. What we saw Spock do was something very human. And I don't know. Maybe it's something that younger Spock would do and older Spock wouldn't do. But at the same time, I just felt like it didn't seem 100% in character. So,
right.
Yeah. And the second thing I already brought up about that, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was pretty logical for someone who had already rejected logic. So that's where I'm at with that. Aside from that, no major no's that I can think of. Just a solid episode, very good. And I know that my rating will go up eventually. So, all right. So let's go to our not good enough section.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
Hello, this is Captain Tilly. What the hell? What the hell? Hold your horses!
All right. James, Youngman and Sailor is first. LT, why don't you do that one?
Okay. Let's kick it off with James, and says, that is not what I suggested. Spring to Spock.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. So James has thought of, based on the last couple of episodes, some alternative to not good enough and to no. So that I should have mentioned that for his no. So he's saying that the oh no, he had an oh no at the start of his no, and so there's a part when right at the beginning of the cold open last week where Pike realizes they're about to be attacked, and he says, "Oh no!" So that was the one possible thing for that. And then he's saying the part where Spock said last week, "That is not what I suggested," as a replacement for not good enough on this show. So I didn't have a chance to grab that audio. But I am taking that under advisement. So we'll see. We might be able to incorporate that next week. We also maybe thought about hit it for the yeses, but I don't know. So just some thoughts. So if we'll throw it out there to the audience when you eventually hear it. If you have any ideas, let us know. Anyway,
okay.
Please continue.
Okay. So with that in mind, I will start again.
Yes.
He goes, Spring, or T'Pok, seemed emotional while taking the compliment from Pike at the negotiation table. It was something in Peck's eyes, performance-wise, as he listened to it. I wonder if it was just an oversell to try and appear as the more feminine mannerisms that T'Pring brought to Spock's body. I may have read too much into that, though.
Well, there definitely were some differences in how they were both playing each other. You know, you could see that, especially when Spock was T'Pring. You know, he was much more, mild mannered, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So, but I definitely did notice it. Next, and I'll do this one for once. Brian from Colorado says, I really didn't buy that number one and Lon could walk on the hull without gravity boots under the protection of the force field. If this is possible, why don't we see maintenance crews doing it more often? It's probably against regs to do more to do that because it sounds like it's not normal for them to do that.
Nope.
So that's my take on it. They kind of did something they're not supposed to do. So that's why it's probably against regs. Like basically my thought is that number one broke a standing order. Like you can't do this. And I can see why, because if the force field went down, you're sucking vacuum and,
Yep.
So yeah. All right. That's it for our not good enoughs from our listeners. Wes, let's start it with you. What are your not good enoughs this week?
I just have one, and it is dealing with the good cop, bad cop. I mean, it's like, I really enjoyed it, but, I just thought that, Lon played the bad cop a little bit too seriously, and breaking down that that ensign really badly, and stuff like that. That enlisted officer really, really badly. I think she played it a little bit too harsh, and stuff like that. So I think the good cop, bad cop scene worked. It's just for my not good enough. It's just Lon played it a little bit too serious regarding the bad cop. So,
and see, I took it as that's her personality. Yeah. I think a lot of times you can tell that she's kind of restrained, and maybe she just saw this is her chance to go ahead and let her inner self out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she was just a little bit too serious. Just a little bit.
Well, it was always my philosophy back when I was in the military in charge of people that you gauge your response to the person, to the situation, and to what they did. So if you have to respond, quickly and come down hard, it's usually because it's something that's a safety violation. In my years as a scout leader, most of my guys knew that raising my voice was stage one. Raising my voice and using the knife hand was stage two. And if I accidentally slipped out with an expletive, they knew that it was something that was really serious.
Does this still follow in, your kids, that step one, step two, step three kind of work?
Well, my kids generally knew that if I raised my voice, something was going on. And usually if I pointed at them, that meant something was about to happen. The thing that made, I think, my daughter, well, no, it was my son, is he knew that if I stood up, if I was seated doing something at my desk and we were having an exchange, that if I stood up, then that meant Dad's about to come over here. Because the one I always remember with Jake was go to bed. Oh, I'm doing something. You need to go to bed.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you need to go to bed. And I stood up and he said, I'm going. I said, it's too late. And of course, he laughs about it now, but I'm like, I followed him down the hall and I said, I'm up now. It's too late. I said, you have done uncorked the whirlwind, son. So with that note,
Yeah.
my not good enough is pedantic. I'll admit it. But when the doc was in sick bay, he said he was going fly fishing. But when we actually saw him on the lake, that was not a fly rod, nor were there flies on his hat. They were just lures. So he was not fly fishing. He was just bait casting or regular fishing.
Well, either they realized that they couldn't do fly fishing, on the budget or in Toronto, or they don't know what fly fishing is, and they don't have Dr. McDonald or whatever to give the science of the fishing.
They don't have a sports and outdoor activity advisor for Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was going, well, if he's fly fishing, he doesn't have any waders. Yeah. And I was like, and then when I saw the reel, I'm going, well, first of all, I said, obviously, the actor's not used to going fishing because he was gripping that rod a little low. But, and I would argue about his casting technique, but
yeah, I thought that too. Actually.
Saying, if he's just talking about going fishing, if he did not say the word fly fishing,
yeah,
I would have been completely down with it. Because, I go fishing, but I don't go fly fishing because fly fishing is one of those, there's a lot more technique. There's a lot more stuff. There's a lot more things. It's way more involved and way more complicated.
Right. It says, according to Wikipedia, it says, unlike other casting methods, fly fishing can be thought of as a method of casting line rather than lure.
Correct.
So that's,
and like I said, it's a completely different rod. It's a completely different reel. It's a different technique. And you usually do fly fishing in rivers.
Yeah. And, that's what I'm seeing as well. And that's what I've seen. It's usually someone with, big waders and knee deep in the water, and, they're going after bass or, trout or salmon or, whatever.
Fly fishing is usually like trout or maybe salmon, but this was like good old fashioned redneck, pond fishing.
Right.
So totally down with the fact that he fishes.
Yeah.
I'm totally down with that. But, it's just, I couldn't let the reference go.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he just is not much of a, fishing guy, and he just, he used the wrong term. So
I blame the writers.
I blame the writers too. Yeah. Okay. So I only had one not good enough that I wrote down. Why did the Rongovians force the negotiations forward like that? That was never explained. So, I mean, I don't know. Was that a result of the Tellarites or what? Like, why did they do that?
Well, I'm going to have to take it from the standpoint that they really wanted to be in the Federation, but like Pike said, they wanted somebody to see their point of view.
Right.
Because it seemed to be the problem they were having with things was the political setup, as far as there's not one group that's in charge.
Yeah.
And maybe coming from their world and their system of government, maybe they don't have a more democratic way of doing things. And so the idea of a consensus style leadership is sort of foreign to them.
Yeah.
But they wanted to be in the Federation because what they saw as the Federation is a better option than, say, the Klingons or the Romulans.
Right. Yeah.
So
maybe, they go by, I guess you could consider it like a parliamentary system versus a democratic system. I don't know. And that there's certain ways to look at that, but the way that it works in Parliament, it usually goes by party. So if the ruling party has a majority of the seats in like the House of Commons, for example, which is what it's called in the UK and Canada, pretty much whatever they want to push forward in terms of policies, they get to do. And in a minority government, usually they have to team up with one or more other parties and kind of do the same thing. But it's usually not everyone voting and, doing their own kind of thing. And of course,
is it like with the parliamentary system, the prime minister is elected by the controlling party? That
yes.
There's a lot less.
Yeah, you don't vote for the prime minister. You vote for your riding or constituency. Or there's another name for it, but the informal term is riding. So basically, it's like a congressional district is the equivalent. So you vote for your congressman, and if your congressman, whoever gets elected in your district, if their party is the party that has the most seats in Congress, they're the party that would elect basically the equivalent of the prime minister, and that would be the leader of that party. That's not how the U.S. system works. Instead, there's a president, and so you vote for that separately, and there's you vote for the senators and you vote for the congressmen. There is a Senate in Canada, for example, and in the UK it's the House of Lords, but they're appointed, so they're right. Not, yeah. So
and I can't remember what year it happened, but it used to be that you only voted for your representative for the House of Representatives, and that the senators were appointed by your state.
Right.
And they changed that, and I can't remember when, but so that you voted for your senators, that you individually voted for your senators as well as your local representatives.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I think it was sometime in the 19th century they changed it, I think, but I'd have to go back. I did read up on that. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent there. So, if I had my thing, I would play Blaine right now. So I will add Blaine if I can in post, but Blaine would sound like this.
What is this bizarre segue that's happening right now? Can we maybe stay on point?
Yes, that's where we did get that strange segue.
Yes. So, all right. So, we are moving on to our feedback section, and now we're going to open hailing frequencies. And I'll also say this.
The money.
I heard that recently. That was funny.
Isn't that the most bizarre thing?
At the end of the day, it's all about
the money.
The money.
So true.
Okay, so we've got another voicemail from Jeff X-Force 11.
Well, hello, Star Trek fans. This is Jeff X-Force 11 leaving my feedback about Spock Amok. And I've got to say that this episode, I like the majority of it, but I didn't really care for the body swap aspect of it. It was okay, but I think it's been done a lot. But I think the rest of the episode really balances it out with some unique things and some fun things. I mean, I really like the Una and Leon's kind of discovering what it's like for the other half and taking a little time off and seeing what that's like. I really liked getting to see Nurse Chapel and Ortegas outside of their normal environment and getting to see Chapel really examine what's going on with her love life and why she's choosing to keep things casual. And I enjoyed getting to see Pike be Pike and direct things behind the scenes. And so I even enjoyed Dr. Mbinga's fishing. So I like those aspects of it. The body swap was okay, but I thought it was a good episode to give us insight into the crew, and I'm happy about that. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff X-Force 11. And we are on a streak of 1. Yeah, I mean, this is probably in some ways my least favorite part, although I didn't really talk about it too much. So I agree with you on that end. So, and we did get some corroborating feedback that we'll talk about in a minute. All right, LT, why don't you read James's feedback there?
Okay. James says, wow, so great. I loved all the one-liners. I love the plot. I can't get enough of this show. This episode really could easily be updated to a 10 instead of a 9.95, but I want to remain consistent with Memento Mori. I loved both of those equally. And of course, I had my nitpicks. This brings me back to the old days of hating to have to wait a week for a new episode to drop. I wish I could binge it first run. I definitely will re-binge it. And he has, I guess, winky face, Kim and James, the non-omitted non-sailor shout out.
Yeah. And I'll also add.
He said, this is not a feeling I've had as much with any of the new tracks. And he can't wait until hear everyone's thoughts. So thank you, James.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely get your feedback in there. Okay, so our last bit of feedback is from, this came in while we were recording. I love it when stuff comes in while we're recording and we pick it up. So this came in from Jim from Orange, and I'll read it. It's nice and small, short. This was my least favorite episode so far. Spock and T'Pring didn't work for me, but I really liked Enterprise Bingo, and Captain Pike is such a wonderful leader. His unique diplomatic skills were awesome. Also, I love how Nurse Chapel is being portrayed. So he sees it a lot of the same way as Jeff did.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think you're not alone, Jim. I don't know if I can say that exclusively. I think the problem that I'm having is the Vulcan emotion versus not emotion. And there are times when I'm seeing the Vulcans working in a way that I think is like not appropriate to Vulcans, and that's what sometimes gives me pause.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, and that's it for our feedback this week. And now we're on to our notes. All right, Wes, what do you have?
Well, whenever I was going to mention this earlier when you guys were talking about the fight music, whenever I hear that, I think about Star Trek, but I also think of the scene in the Cable Guy movie with Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick doing that kind of fight at medieval times restaurant.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to put that in my spot the references section, and I didn't put it in. So good on you for mentioning that.
Yeah, and then also, I do like how the way Chapel is being portrayed, and I do have to give special kudos to Jess Bush, who plays her, because I know that she's not from the United States originally. She's from Australia, and she has nailed an American, kind of like neutral American accent very, very well. I have to give her props for that. Because I know with certain actors, if you get accent training, you kind of mimic it okay, but she's nailed it. So I do want to say that.
She really has.
It's worth saying that a lot of Australian actors get trained in doing American accents because I think there's a lot of American TV that's shot in Australia these days and American movies. So there's the need for them to learn an American accent. And there's a lot of them that want to come to the US or Canada for other parts. So I think, picking up an American or Canadian accent for that matter is probably something that they train for. So, because the other show that we podcast about right now, Fear the Walking Dead, Alicia Debnam Carey, she also does an American accent, and she just nails it. Like, you'd never know that she was Australian if you didn't hear it, when she's talking. And the same thing with Lenny James and, on the original show, Andrew Lincoln. Although his English or his American accent, Southern accent, was not quite there first couple seasons, but you could hear a little bit going a little south once in a while. No pun intended there. but yeah. Anyway, she nails the American accent, and the ones I mentioned nail it too.
Yep.
What else do you have?
Out of the you guys were mentioning earlier about Chapel and Ortega's.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten this vibe from Ortega's that she's probably the most gender fluid character on the show.
Yeah.
I've gotten that vibe from her, and she's actually my new favorite character of Strange New Worlds.
Oh, okay.
Other than I've liked her since the beginning so far. I mean, Melissa Navia does a really good job in her portrayal, and out of the new characters that we've seen, I like her the best.
Yeah.
So
cool.
That's all I have.
LT, what about you?
Well, I didn't mention it before because it really wasn't in the other categories. But the thing that I thought was sort of, I don't know if it's interesting, disturbing, what have you, is that when we're talking about Nurse Chapel, I looked for it, and has Jess Bush had some sort of accident? Because it was like on her left arm when she was wearing that sleeveless dress, she had, I don't know if it was bumps or scars, or it looked like she had something on her arm. And I kept wondering, well, did you get hurt? Did she, is this some injury she's had? Cause it looked kind of like scars or bumps or something. and it just kind of distracted me.
Okay.
I'm enjoying her character. I am enjoying that we've gotten more out of our helm officers of late, because you know that we've had, and of course I can't remember her name, but you know we've had Detmer
Okay.
doing a lot more than Sulu driving ever got to do in most cases, and Ortegas has been a lot more active. So it's nice that the person driving the ship has gotten to do a little bit more than just punch buttons and answer orders and make comments. As a whole, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think that I like the direction the series is taking. I like the fact that they've decided to go this route. And I really wish that thematically they would have made the decision to do this with some of the other series earlier, because I think that and it's not really a slavish episodic format, but I think that going this route has made the show a little more enjoyable. I mean, we can argue that the writers make a big difference as well, but I think that sticking to a strictly serialized season-long format is not necessarily what they need to do for this show. So I think that going more episodic is going to pay dividends, as well as the fact that something you and I had talked about, that they've had 4 years to kind of get their sea legs. As someone said, they've had this much time to grow their beard. So I think that I'm excited to see where we go from here and how the positive press from Strange New Worlds will hopefully bring up the rest of the series and hopefully influence them, because we want the franchise to succeed. We want things to remain popular. And I think it's a testimony to that to see how well Strange New Worlds has done just in this first 5 episodes. And that's all I got to say about that.
Okay, Forrest.
Well, I just didn't want that. I just didn't want that long pause at the end when I stopped, and it's like,
yeah,
your turn, Brian.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so now it's time for Spot the References. So, and this is a partial list. I think some of these I might think of more and add some more next week, but it was chock full of references, actually. The title, of course, is a reference to Amok Time, a very famous episode in TOS, and it has a very famous fight with Kirk and Spock, and this has, a very similar fight on very similar, the Khaleesi and all of that. That's part of that fight, and Spock cuts Kirk's shirt and cuts Kirk with the same, I'm sorry, you had the name of the weapon earlier, that Learpa that Ortegas mentioned. Anyway, so it was exactly the same, like almost in many ways, swipe for swipe. I just love that. That was such a, yeah, it's fan servicey, and there's always going to be some that hate that, but for me, that was pure joy. I mean, I just love that. And I see Spock as this guy who is, very much, fighting both sides of himself. So to me, it works great. Moving on, Pike has the green tunic that Kirk wore, and if you don't know the story, in TOS, the gold uniforms were actually green, and in the color processing that they did back then, they turned gold. So they weren't actually supposed to be gold. They were actually supposed to be green. So both fabrics were green, and one turned green in on the in colorizing, and one did not. So it just, well, not colorizing, but you know what I mean. There's a Freaky Friday going on here. Of course, there have been many different movies and that have followed that, and I'm sure there are probably some Paramount movies that have kind of followed that, that trope. But Kepler 22b is an actual planet that may be suitable for life. So good on you for mentioning it. I'm sure that was the Dr. McDonald that got that in there. Argellus 2 was mentioned before. That was, I think, somewhere Scotty mentioned in TOS, if I'm not mistaken. And that's not something I wrote down, but I think that that's true. Starbase 1 is a starbase that we have seen before in Discovery. It was destroyed by the Klingons, and that was season 2, episode 9, Project Daedalus. So this is the same starbase a few years later, and they are going back to it. There's a line where Spock says, "I am Spock." That's a callback to Leonard Nimoy's memoir, of course. His Katra, or their Katras, are stuck, like in Star Trek 3. So that's worth mentioning. Barjan Tor is a member of the Vatosh Katur, and that is first shown on the Enterprise. That is considered in Vulcan. That means Vulcans without logic. And apparently they claimed to have finally managed to find a balance between the two through constant discipline and meditation. So I guess it's I'm reading this on Memory Alpha. In truth, these Vulcans hadn't abandoned their logic, but had simply learned to exist without the need to continually suppress their emotions. They still believed that logic was an essential part of Vulcan existence, but that it had to complement emotions, not exclude them. After 8 years of experimentation, they claim to have finally managed to find a balance between the two through constant discipline and meditation. Okay, so that's something I didn't know prior to mentioning it. So I guess that is in like, that fits who they're supposed to be, I guess. They're mentioned in Enterprise Season 1, Episode 17, titled Fusion, and Season 2, Episode 14, Stigma. So that's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had mentioned it earlier, but I didn't have the particulars, so
yeah,
thank you for that.
Yeah. The nightmare that Spock has, where he is, basically fighting his human versus Vulcan halves into separate individuals. This is similar to something B'Elanna Torres had in reality with the Vidian experimentation on Voyagers. Season 1, episode 14, Faces. And I saw that recently. It's funny I didn't mention that. What else? Spock mentions the chapel that he had a pet Salat, Ichaya, growing up. And that was mentioned before. Argelius 2. That I probably said it wrong before. I think I said Argellus, but yeah, Argelius 2 is the planet, and this was mentioned in TOS Wolf in the Fold, season 2, episode 7.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the Jack the Ripper episode. So, all right, that's it for our Spot the Reference section this week. So let's move on to our shipwide announcements. And look at this. We don't have to say we have news from Wes Huntington, and here we go. Instead, I say, Wes, what news do you have this week?
Well,
and we can react to it this time. So that's cool.
Yes, you can. That'd be great. Well, LT mentioned this a little bit earlier about the Ready Room that was there this week. The guests on the show were Ethan Peck and Gia Sandhu, who plays T'Pring in Strange New Worlds. They talked about, how their characters were going on this season, that kind of thing. They mentioned LT mentioned that Gia's interview with Will Wheaton was actually really funny. One of the video segments was Star Trek Bingo with the cast of Strange New Worlds. There was like 5 different things regarding Star Trek fans and stuff like that. And it's kind of like a Never Have I Ever kind of thing. If they said that was actually fun to watch. Actually, that was actually really fun to watch.
Two of them won, right? It was Rebecca
Romaine and Melissa Navia.
Right.
They got 4 out of the 5.
Yeah.
No one got 5, which was kind of sad.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised. I was actually kind of surprised that the question that the one that Rebecca Romaine got wrong, I was actually surprised that she got it wrong. So not wrong, I shouldn't say wrong, but couldn't answer a yes to. Like it was fan reaction or something like that. Like, I don't know, maybe she doesn't do a lot of cons or didn't get right on with people at the ones that she's been at. But yeah, that was surprising. But other than that, she did pretty well.
Yeah, and I thought that segment was actually really fun to watch. And then finally, there was a little segment on Hemmer, actually, towards the end of the episode, towards the end of the room. Henry Alonso Myers mentioned the fact that they wanted more aliens in their cast than just Spock. So that's why Hemmer was created and stuff like that. And then, as always, there was a sneak peek at episode 6. So, all right.
And we finally get to an episode that you haven't seen.
Actually,
you have seen it.
I have seen it.
Okay. Well, anyway.
I can mention the title and stuff like that. I can mention. Yeah. Anyway, I can let you know the title of it when you get to it.
Okay. Well, I do have the title.
The synopsis.
I do have the title. So, but I guess with regards to what I just said. Anyway, I'll stop interrupting you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Paramount Plus, we know that is coming out to the UK and Ireland later on this month on the 22nd. However, there's going to be a little twist to it. When Paramount Plus launches on June 22nd, only the first 3 episodes of Strange New Worlds will be available to those viewers. After that, every single episode will be released on Wednesdays, which means that season 1 for Strange New Worlds in the UK and Ireland will actually conclude in mid-August rather than at the beginning of July, which is, I think, personally kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, I see, but I wonder. This makes me wonder if they're doing that because, like, maybe it will tie into Lower Decks. So maybe they'll have it so that they have the first 3 episodes, and then once they get to the end, then Lower Decks will start, and then and they'll have Lower Decks like in sync with the US. that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen. So,
Well, that's possible. And I was thinking, well, who has the shows licensed in the UK territory now?
Well, it is Paramount Global. What's being shown right now, it's I believe it's being shown. If it's being shown at all, it would be on Pluto TV.
Right. And so I'm thinking it could be something to do with licensure or some
it could be
other thing.
It could be.
Very good.
Yeah. We know how that works.
Because knowing the shenanigans they've had, and dare I say it, the hijinks involved with getting the shows distributed in different countries. It could very well be, they had an agreement to do up to a certain point, and there's got to be, some board to vote on it, and, there's no telling.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There can also be like, just rights issues and things like that.
Well, hopefully this will straighten out anybody in the UK that was complaining about not being able to get the shows at all.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see, and I think all of us do want to see, like, what they did with Discovery this year was terrible. And I think, I don't think that they intended to do that. I think it just kind of went that way, but, sometimes that's the way it goes with business, so.
Yep.
So they just, they couldn't show it on Netflix, and, Netflix wanted an exclusive, Paramount wanted an exclusive. They couldn't, agree. So, that was it.
Well, I was also going to mention that when Paramount Plus does launch in the UK and Ireland this month, they will be able to watch the full 13 episode season of Star Trek Discovery for season 4, as well as the first 10 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy. So,
and I assume
so that will be available.
And I assume Picard as well.
Right now, it's still on Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay.
Yep, same with Lower Decks, but that could possibly change once that is expanded more.
Okay,
definitely could change.
See, that's one thing that I was curious about, because we have not received any feedback at all during Picard. We did not receive any feedback at all from outside of the U.S. and Canada. So I don't know if it just had to do with our lateness, or if it had to do with, but in any case, we didn't get any. We used to get a lot. So anyway, please continue, Wes. I said I wasn't going to interrupt you, and I still am.
It's okay. I love you guys' reaction to my news stories.
Yeah.
I do like it.
Good.
The last domino is going to fall for Netflix US. Deep Space Nine is leaving Netflix on July 1st. So that is the last of the pre-Kurtzman shows to leave that streamer, making Paramount Plus the only way in the United States to watch Star Trek. So, I mean, granted, it's all the franchise plus 12 of the 13 films I found out, actually. The 2009 movie was there. It was there. I saw it like about a month ago, but then it just mysteriously went away again.
Yeah, it's funny how the movies go. It's like they have a different deal with movies where they kind of like have windows, and certain movies will go to, they'll play on one streaming service, and then they'll go to another streaming service and another streaming service. They kind of bounce back and forth. So, like, I know at one point, one of the movies was on AMC Plus, maybe all three, and and I think they might have been on Hulu, and they may have been on Amazon, and they might have been on Peacock, and they just kind of rotate. And so it's going to be rare that they do that, and I think it's maybe they have a harder time with not the Kurtzman era, the J.J. Abrams 3 movies, and keeping them like on Paramount Plus versus the 10 prior to that. So
could be.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw they were showing Beyond the other night on the Paramount channel.
Right. And that they would be able to do, but they have a whole weird thing with Paramount Network. Some shows stream on Paramount Plus and some don't. Some they have like a Paramount Network app, and that stuff will be on. Some of it will be on, the cable app of your cable provider or satellite provider. And, some will just be available, whatever other way. It's just, I don't know. It's just weird. I know I mentioned this before. Yellowstone is not available on Paramount Plus. And even though it's the most popular show on cable right now, it is not available on Amazon Plus. Instead, it's on Peacock because of one of these crazy streaming deal things.
Yep.
So anyway, please continue.
Yeah. I was going to mention that about South Park. The same way, it's the same kind of thing. So,
yeah, exactly. So they'll put specials on Paramount Plus, but the regular episodes are, I don't know where.
They're on HBO Max.
See, that makes no sense at all.
No, it doesn't. But that's because back when they were bidding the streaming services for the rights to South Park, HBO Max lost out one over Hulu because they paid like almost $500 million just to get the exclusive rights.
Yeah, and it's also worth saying too that the previous CEO Les Moonves had a different strategy. He wanted to put the programs, like a little bit over here, a little bit over there, a little bit over here, and not put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing. And I think Bob Backish is doing it the other way, which is the more modern way. And what we're seeing, other companies do, where they put all of their programs into their one streaming product. And I think, and we still see some remnants of not doing that on certain programs, but that's all kind of like agreements from maybe 2018 and prior, so
right.
once those other, like for a good example might be Grey's Anatomy. Right now, Grey's Anatomy has been on Netflix forever. Okay. I would bet that the next time the contract comes up for Grey's Anatomy, it's going to end up on Hulu. I pretty much guarantee it, because the current season will always be on Hulu, but the past seasons are on Netflix. They'll move it over to Hulu, and they'll, that'll be the home for Grey's Anatomy. So anyway, I keep on mentioning Grey's Anatomy for some reason.
Yes, you do.
It's okay.
I haven't seen it in a while, so,
And I never watched it. So
yeah,
there you go.
All right.
But it's the same, but contractually, it's the same thing you run into with several of the other shows. It's like there are certain shows that are only on Apple TV now.
Yes.
And they were financed through their channel, and that's the only place you can see them. You can't see them anywhere else.
Right.
And I think this non-exclusivity we've seen in the past is going to come to a screeching halt at some point. And I think all of the networks are going to bring their own products home, so to speak.
I think that's what we're seeing, and I think like I say, that whole thing is gonna, like, I agree with you that everything's gonna be in its own thing, and there have been people on this podcast send in their feedback, have complained about this, but this is the way it's going. And quite honestly, if I want my Star Trek, I want to get it all in one place. I don't want to have to subscribe to Amazon and Netflix and Paramount Plus. I want to get it all in one place, right? So that's my take on it.
Well, I mean, and it's what the BBC's done.
Right.
Because a lot of the, like the newer Doctor Who episodes or take that back. The old Doctor Who episodes are all on BritBox.
Right.
That nobody else shows anything prior to Chris Eccleston but BritBox.
Right. Yeah, the old stuff. You don't see it on TV except for BritBox.
It used to be all over the place,
which is partially an EMC streaming app. So, all right, we got into a side track. So I gotta say,
What is this bizarre segue that's happening right now? Can we maybe stay on point?
All right.
Please continue.
Yes. All right. So we all know about what happened with LeVar Burton not being selected as the host of Jeopardy when, like, I know that there was petitions out there all last year when Alex Trebek passed away and stuff like that. Well, he did an interview with Newsies in the Loop, which was picked up by Entertainment Weekly. And he was interviewed prior to him hosting the Scripps Spelling Bee this past week. And he said that he was very humiliated by not being selected when former executive producer Mike Richards was selected as the host, and then left after, and then had to resign after one day of filming new episodes and stuff like that. So I'm just mentioning this because of LeVar Burton, being a Star Trek actor. He just mentioned the fact that he was very humiliated by the fact that he was not selected, even though he had the support of many fans who are fans of him, from Star Trek to Roots to Reading Rainbow and all the other stuff he's done over the years of his career and stuff like that. So that's why I'm mentioning it. And that's all I got to say about that, regarding this part of the news.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys heard me say about Destination Star Trek London got canceled last week. Well, there's more to it, actually. Apparently, it was all Paramount's decision to do it. It wasn't the organizers of Destination Star Trek. Apparently, they just wanted one European event per year, and that happens to be this year in Germany, so in September. So, apparently, a lot of I saw this, and I saw this. A lot of UK fans were not happy about this, and I guess they were demanding refunds. And I guess now they are trying to get refunds now. So,
as they should.
So,
yeah.
So it was all Paramount's decision, actually, which made people unhappy. Like, I understand. I mean, I understand where they're coming from, where Paramount's coming from, having one, but then you're kind of alienating more fans by not having more of them.
Right. I agree. And I didn't get to say it when you were giving the LeVar Burton news, but it seemed like the fix was in. Even before LeVar gave this interview, like making it so that the executive producer gets the job. It just seems kind of fishy, and
Mhm.
That's my take on it. That was my take on it before. So
Yeah,
I
it's really disappointing.
Kind of that whole thing of, well, we have to post the job because we have to post the job, but we're
yeah.
just doing it because we have to.
Yeah, very much that kind of thing. It's a good way to put it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and really tactically, Paramount should have waited until after the event, honestly, because we know that they've had a tendency to be kind of heavy-handed with some things, and I guess I would have waited until after Destination London and just say, okay, next year we're only going to do one event for the European fans, rather than announce it, hype it up, and then go, sorry, we're canceling.
Yeah.
Not the best PR move in the world.
No, it was not. I completely agree with you, LT, on that. I do agree 100%. So,
because are there still...
It reeks of like a regime change. Like whoever is involved in that kind of thing, there was a change in who's in charge, and who's in charge said, no, we're only going to do one. And maybe, well, and you got to look at it, like, to give them the benefit of the doubt, there may be a lot that Paramount has to do on an event like this. And if they're not getting, 50,000 fans at an event, it may not be worth it for them to do 2 events in Europe. So, that's kind of why it may have happened,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but they still could have done it a little more.
They have no tact. Let's face it. They don't have tact. They never have. I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt by no means. They go with these things. They have the bull in a china shop kind of finesse. But anyway,
and that also goes to, since we know that the people who were doing Vegas are not. They're not under the same contract now, or
they're not under contract at all. I think they're basically just doing those conventions on their own. They're like unofficial.
Yeah. Well, it makes me wonder if that's the case, if Paramount's going to turn around and do an official one somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure that they will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but I haven't gotten wind of anything of that nature lately.
Well, okay. Sorry. I wasn't thinking there. They are doing one. And that was that one that was in Chicago. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Right. And that one, I think was kind of low key this year, and maybe next year it'll be a bigger event. We'll see. So anyway, let's get to the next article.
Well, yesterday, as of June 4th, it is now 40 years since The Wrath of Khan first appeared in theaters. And apparently Paramount is celebrating the event with Summer of Sweet Revenge. They have also launched a website at wrathofppcon.com to keep up with their activities. Apparently, one of them was to vote on a Funko Pop doll of Khan as he appeared in The Wrath of Khan. One was normal. The other one was the way he was bloodied after in the Mutara Nebula battle and stuff like that. Obviously, you got the 40th anniversary screenings happening this September.
As long as it has that ridiculously large chest.
Oh yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
The little thing does. Yep.
But it's a Funko Pop, so it can only be so ridiculously large.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then apparently starting on the 4th, they were going to start the Paramount Plus service was going to have special carousels was a specifically curated selection of con-centric and revenge-themed episodes and films. It's also shared on their social media, and apparently this is what the pecan comes from. Apparently they partnered with Paramount partnered with Cool House to bring limited edition Wrath of Pecan ice cream sandwiches to New York City in an ice cream truck, actually.
Wrath of Pecan. Oh my God.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That deserves
Yeah, I know. Apparently, it was in the Soho neighborhood of New York City on the 4th, and then it will be in Los Angeles on the 17th to celebrate National Ice Cream Day in 2nd Street and Santa Monica Boulevard in Los Angeles. And it also will be at San Diego Comic-Con in July.
As far as I'm concerned, every day should be National Ice Cream Day.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not going to bring that truck down here because it would be Wrath of Pecan.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that stuff.
To recite another Paramount property, Lieutenant Dan Ice Cream. Anyway.
Oh yeah. It is Wrath of Pecan ice cream.
Yeah. Good old Forrest Gump. Anyway,
I have one more.
Okay.
Actually, so it's about the other Star franchise, actually, a Star Wars franchise.
Okay.
So, and it's something to do with Anson Mount, actually. So, apparently, one of the characters in the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show on Paramount Plus, her name is Moses Ingram, and apparently she's gotten a lot of racial hate for being in it and stuff like that. He tweeted out his support of her and stuff like that. So he said, "We the Trek family have her back." So and stuff like that. He tweeted out his support of Moses Ingram. So I
don't know that story. So what? Why is she getting hatred?
Because it's racially motivated, Brian.
Yeah,
it's because it's racially motivated, and stuff like that. She's been in the first 3 parts of the 6-part miniseries, and apparently she's gotten a lot of racial hate.
I hate to say it, but that, my friend, is a big difference between the Star Trek community and the Star Wars community.
Yes, completely.
Yeah. Star Trek community is inclusive, welcomes everyone, welcomes all types, all genders, all, abilities, all whatever. And Star Wars, we've seen it quite a bit. Not to paint with a wide brush, but it's not. There's a lot of I don't know. Like I said, I think in the first episode or the second episode to LT, I said I hate people, and I don't hate people. Okay, it's not that I hate people. I hate close-minded people. And I think that there are more close-minded people in the Star Wars universe, Star Wars fans, than there are Star Trek. So that's my belief, and that's what I have to say about that.
Well,
I thought it was important to mention it, so.
We could definitely go on arguing about the difference in the Star Wars fandom post. I can't remember the last one, but post the 3 from Phantom Menace, that whatever changes we think we got into when they went to we started the Discovery era under Alex Kurtzman.
Right.
I think they've had a lot more
vitriol,
stormy relationship.
Yeah.
With the purchase of the franchise out of Lucasfilms and more into Disney.
Right.
So,
yeah. All right. So that's it. Thank you, Wes. I realize that we had a different format this time, but certainly interesting. And I know I enjoyed it. So, and hopefully you did too. And not just Wes, but all you listeners too. So let us know, maybe we can figure out a way of doing that even when Wes isn't on the show. I don't know. And I'm talking out of my butt when I say that. So just keep that in mind. Anyway,
there you go.
Let's look at our parrots for this week. May 21st to the 27th, Star Trek Strange New Worlds was down. It went from number 4 to number 5 this week. It got a 32.6 times the demand of an average show, right at the line of exceptional, staying in the exceptional category. Number 1 with a bullet right now is Stranger Things. It was number 1 last week as well, but it went to 100.2 times the demand of an average show. So it went way up. I'm not sure how it did compared to all TV. I have to go back and look at the stats for that. But anyway, it's at 101.2. That's pretty high. You go down to the Mandalorian for the next one at 37.4 times the demand of an average show. So that's a big drop. Anyway, not to keep going on that. And it looks like Picard has fallen off the top 10. If I hadn't said that before, so it's just Strange New Worlds that is on there now. Okay, so I think that's it for our news and our parrots. So to submit your theories and feedback, go to talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, where you can submit text or audio. Call 216-232-6146 and leave a voicemail. Email us at strangenewworlds@talkthroughmedia.com. Post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek TTM. And I'll just say something funny on my personal Instagram today. I posted a fortune that I got today, and it said, defy everyone's expectations. And the word defy was spelled capital D, lowercase e, capital F, I. So like Wi-Fi or something. And I said, I would feel better about this fortune cookie if they spelled defy correctly. So anyway, completely,
What is this bizarre segue that's happening right now? Can we maybe stay on point?
But anyway, so, all right, LT, you're next.
If you'd like to support the podcast, you can like our page on Facebook. That's at facebook.com/talkthroughmedia. And while you're there, write us a review. You can share us on Facebook and retweet us on Twitter, especially when we post that a new episode is out. You can subscribe to the Talk Through Media YouTube channel, which is where you'll find our newest episodes first. Subscribe to us in Apple Podcast or the podcast client of your choice, and while you're there, give us a rating or a review. You can go to podchaser.com, where you can rate and review the podcast and even individual episodes. Finally, the best way to help us keep going is to support us via our Patreon. And we'd like to thank our Patreon supporters: Andrew Davis, Morning Pace, Trey, Mike, Robert Kaiser, Jeff Gentry, Kevin Lyle, Michael Carrier, Aaron Mays, Brian Shiro, Kim Vogley, Kyle McAdams, James Robbins, and me.
And you.
And me.
All of the podcasts from Talk Through Media can be found on the Talk Through Media All-Inclusive feed, which includes the Re-Binge Deep Space Nine podcast, the Star Trek Discovery podcast, the Star Trek Picard cast, Those two you may be hearing this on. Also, there is now a new feed for the Star Trek Strange New Worlds talk through that has its own feed. So it's on several feeds as well as the all-inclusive feed. So, and of course, we can't forget the Walking Dead talk through, which, speaking of that, Kyle, LT, and I, although I missed last week, I missed a big episode last week, but we are continuing Fear the Walking Dead talk through. And this week is the season finale for Fear the Walking Dead, so I better not miss this one.
Yes, as Jim Morrison said, this is the end.
Yes. Although it's coming back next season. Our next episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds talk through will cover Season 1, Episode 6, titled Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. We don't know who has written, directed it, unless Wes wants to tell us.
I can tell you.
Okay.
The episode is written by Robin Wasserman and Bill Wolkoff.
Okay.
The episode is directed by Andy Armaginian.
Okay.
And I have a short little synopsis.
Okay.
A threat to an idyllic planet reunites Captain Pike with the lost love of his life. To protect her and the scientific holy child from a conspiracy, Pike offers his help and is forced to face unresolved feelings of his past.
Okay. Are we going back to Talos? You can't. I know you can't say. You can't say. You can't say.
No.
Maybe this is his girlfriend before he met Vina.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, regardless, we don't want you to don't want you to break embargo. So,
yep,
we appreciate it. And that's a good gig, I think. All right. So until next time, I should say thank you, Wes, for joining us this week. It was quite good. So we'll have you back.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm LT.
And I'm Wes.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.
Kapla.
Kapla.